transmissions detected.
Kill them all.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
Hello, my friends. 2,000 years ago, there was a group of highly controversial events that took place, and I feel like we were given the kids' version of it all. What happened actually should have shaped the world we live in today, and at one time it seems like it did. But all that we were taught, it only left a lot of unanswered questions, like why do our dates have reference to some man's life and death? And why did we chug along for thousands of years and then reset back to zero? And did the whole world do this? Did they know about it? Seems like it. I don't know if we were read in on everything correctly or not, but maybe someone left us some clues that what really went down. Some breadcrumbs, you know. Today I document a man named Jesus of Nazareth and what the official record says about him. Since too many of us put our 2 cents in on any subject that we look at, our own imagination, our feelings, they warp the genuine reality on whatever it is we're looking into, you know. But that's just the human nature of it, right? And this being such a vast area to research in, I've found that religion becomes what everything we meddle with becomes. It gets ultimately corrupted. And with that, I thought it best to see what the official record on this matter was. You know, I don't want to hear anyone's opinion anymore. It's getting ridiculous, you know. So the Roman Senate, they had written accounts of everything that went on in those days. The official reports were daily, and they tell who was fined, imprisoned, even executed on that day. I'll go as far as to let you know this too. The Jewish high priests in their courts thousands of years ago, even if they did not agree with it, if they thought something was a conspiracy, maybe if something was odd that day, they wrote it down. And to my amazement, there's so many actual events that would have changed our known history books and our religions as a whole. It'd be completely different, put like that. Ever wonder why so many different gods were around? How did that come about, and what, everybody was just stupid? No, it appears that we've been thoroughly misled on the events and the irrefutable proofs that happened 2,000 or so years ago. And you know how they say everybody's doing it? No, they weren't. Amazing things that were known as fact, not fiction, took place. Now, this book I found is about a 4 or 5 hour read. I'll just give you a short summary, so I'll spare you with it. I'll tell you what I found interesting. Now, it was written in 1884. It's from the Andover Harvard Theological Library. You can get this online. You can go to the Library of Congress or the Internet Archives. It's free. Archeological writings of the Sanhedrin and the Talmuds of the Jews, taken from the ancient parchments and scrolls at Constantinople and the Vatican at Rome, being the record made by the enemies of Jesus of Nazareth in his day. Now, a group of scholars, clergymen, and archaeologists from America, Great Britain, and other various countries met in Rome in the 1880s to search the Vatican's library. They wanted proof of the man named Jesus and what happened to him, what the truth was. They requested all the Roman Senate's accounts and letters on his behalf or about him, from his birth to after his execution. To their amazement, they got exactly what they asked for. It was still preserved. Then they traveled to the library at Constantinople, and remember, we're told that all this stuff was burned up, all the original text destroyed in Alexandria, but that might be so, but it appears it's not all as it seems. The ancient texts about Jesus and the other magnificent things that happen in this world that we get told is just, fantasy. A man named Muhammad had it all preserved. They said that it took 2 men to pick it up. It's how much of text that he had hidden away and sealed and protected. Imagine that. You think Muhammad didn't care? Oh, how you would be wrong. This book is long and drawn out with explanations of the events that shook the world, but it's worth reading if you like to read in great detail. It gets so detailed, the letters they send in and what the court actually records. Now, the author of this book, Reverend Mahan, a professor and scholar, he had the same questions 150 years ago or more that we have now. He wanted to know what was said about this man. He wanted to know, without the Jewish influence on everything, what did the enemies of Jesus had to say about what went down? Who was he, and what did he do in their presence? In the book, it goes through the official records, along with the ancient Jewish original texts and letters to the Senate and Sanhedrin by the high priest, by Pilate, by Herod, by the emperor himself, and various other, important people. It's not a story we knew of, but there's Caiaphas, the high priest. We do know of him. He hated Jesus and he spoke down about him. He sent 2 letters to the Sanhedrin. The first one, he says, Jesus is a necromancer, and he learned it from Egypt, and he's a fraud. He shows his disdain in this letter that he writes, and he gives detailed account of Jesus walking around, being blasphemous, he says, telling anyone who would listen the true name of God. How dare him? This was forbidden to do, and it was their law, of course, not God's, but I thought you might want to hear what the Jewish priest's exact words were 2,000 years ago. Sometimes I think it's funny when we argue about little things and come to find out it's weird. So he's mad at Jesus for saying or telling everyone's God's name, and this is what he says. I quote, "In the ark, God calls himself Elah, existence without beginning and no contingency as to his end. Again, he writes his name Jah, knowledge that comprehends without being comprehended. Again, he has written Adonai, full and free, and freely full. Combining the several names, we have Jehovah, the Hebrew God. A man can never go wrong while he can pronounce this name in its comprehensive sense. This is where the Zealots, the Sadducees, and Essenes had their origin, and it is the want of being able to pronounce this name in its comprehensive sense that causes so much dissension among us Jews. Jesus could pronounce this name, but he stole it out of the temple, as I am credibly informed." See, he was trying to have everyone, hate him and get rid of him, for many things, mostly for power, but then when it came down to it, I believe it was just to save their own skin. But think about how many times people laughed at that name, Saturday Night Live. I know everyone remembers that. They come knocking at your door. People would just, that name was associated always with laughter. Shame on us. Another report in the book is Galileo. He interviews the people of Bethlehem in the surrounding areas. He talks to both Mary and Joseph, detailed accounts. Various other strangers, too, he sees in town to see what's up with this man named Jesus. Now, he finds out that everyone knew him. He was well liked by even the Roman guards. But when he got around to interviewing his parents, it was kind of different. Mary and Joseph were well, Jesus doesn't care about anything. He's carefree. He doesn't listen to them anyway. They told him about the animals, how they all came to him of free will, even the vipers and the wolves. And they said it was like the animals bowed to him. They wanted his affection. So he asked him, "Where's Jesus at?" They were like, they have no idea. He was able to read by himself as a child. They didn't teach him. Maybe he's at the temple. Maybe he's with the wise men. He had power over the elements. The animals protected him, so there's no telling where he's at. And they weren't impressed at all, especially Mary. She wanted bigger and better things for him. She thought maybe he was, holding himself back, hanging out with all the poor people and the lepers and the, and the sinners. And Joseph, he was said to, not care at all. He was just a big burly man, almost like her protector. He didn't speak much. Mary was petite and simple and pretty. And Joseph, like I said, just seemed to watch over her, not lay with her. Read the book. Now, what was actually funny was this. Mary told Galileo, Jesus called her woman and not mother when he spoke to her. And she said she didn't like that at all. It's pretty funny. Now, the Jewish high priest Caiaphas, he sends another letter after Jesus' death. And this is what he wrote. Because, see, he's more the cause of Jesus' death than Pilate. And he had gotten word that, well, Jesus was walking around and there were dead people coming up out of the grave and loved ones walking around. It was amazing, right? And he was scared to death. Well, in the letter, this is what he says, I quote, "And as we teach that honesty of purpose gives character to the action, and on this basis I try to clear myself of any charge, yet there is a conscious fear about my heart so that I can have no rest day nor night. I felt sure that if I should meet him, I should fall dead at his feet. And it seemed to me if I went out, I should be sure to meet him. In this state of conscious dread, I remained investigating the scriptures to know more about the prophecies concerning this man, but found nothing to satisfy my mind. I locked my door and gave the guard orders to let no one in without first giving me notice. While thus engaged, with no one in the room but my wife and Annas, her father, when I lifted up my eyes, behold, Jesus of Nazareth stood before me. My breath stopped, my blood ran cold, and I was in the act of falling when he spoke and said, 'Be not afraid, it is I. You condemned me that you might go free. This is the work of my Father. Your only wrong is you have a wicked heart. This you must repent of. This last lamb you have slain is the one that was appointed before the foundation. This sacrifice is made for all men. Your other lambs were for those who offered them. This is for all. This is the last. It is for you, if you will accept it. I died that you and all mankind might be saved.'" I bet that was awkward for a Jewish high priest to say. He actually steps down from his position as the high priest on that day for what he had done or felt like he was responsible for. It goes on to record in the book the weird earthquakes that happened when Jesus died that were recorded there in the Senate. They say just as his ghost was given up or he passed away, it started. And it was a great mist that rose up from the ground and all sorts of oddities, like the sun turned off. It's just weird. One other report the book details is of the Magi. It says they worshipped him. And basically three magi show up. We read about them, but we don't really know exactly. Well, recorded and archived in the Roman Senate, they came to investigate what happened to Jesus and give their testimony to the court of what they did and what they saw. They were from different parts of the world, and they did not know one another. But they had the same dream and the same experience. There was what they called a Hindu, a Greek, and a Roman. They were each guided by a bright star and a voice from heaven that led them to each other and to Jesus at birth. A few other, pretty wild things happened as well. Now, the explanation they give for the stars, it just so happens to be exactly what we see today. These lights or orbs came down, lit up the sky, danced and flashed around. I wonder what it was that they were dealing with. Aliens or angels, one and the same to me, it appears. Now, the book has many letters and quotes written by famous priests, philosophers, and wise men of the time. It explains that there was an era that every man, woman, and child knew there was but one true God, and there were no religions per se, not whatsoever. And summing up what this book is about, it tells a story that isn't watered down. It gives you the official documentation that cannot be altered from the people who wrote it. In the end, you see that Jesus was a real person. You see where he came from and who he was the son of. But for that, I guess you can just be the judge of it. And with the evidence that's provided, I know the outcome that you'll see. Because it suggests that he wasn't like us. He was from the land of the immortal. He had special power over every living thing, whoever he was, including the elements. And with his voice or his vibrational frequency out of his mouth, he could do whatever he pleased. He even had power over life and death itself. Either way you look at it, it's pretty weird to say it, isn't it? Or even that he was around to be recorded. But what would you expect in Crazy World, right? Nothing less, right? I assure you. That's all I gotta say about that. My love to you all. I'm Wild Dog, and I am out of here.
Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. And to feel the way that every child should sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. The people run in circles.